My name is Jennifer. I was born just 3 minutes after my twin sister, Rachel, but those 3 minutes might as well have been a lifetime, given how differently our parents treated us. Our family lived in a 2-story white house in the suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee. My mother, Catherine, was a well-known real estate agent, always appearing with neatly styled hair, an expensive suit, and a phone that never left her hand. My father, Marcus, ran a small accounting office, buried in ledgers all day, rarely looking up to acknowledge his younger daughter. At first glance, we seemed like a typical middle-class family, perhaps even admirable, but only those who lived in that house knew the truth. Fairness never existed there. From a very young age, I could feel that my parents' love was never equally divided. When Rachel and I were about 4, Mum used to take us shopping on weekends. But every time we left the mall, Rachel's bags were always heavier. She got the newest Converse sneakers, while I had to pretend to be excited about the discounted pair from the bottom shelf. Every time Rachel pointed at something, it almost instantly ended up in the shopping cart. When I carefully asked, "Mum, can I have—" she'd cut me off with a cold glance. Not always, Jennifer. Our earliest birthday gifts made it clear where I stood in their hearts. Though we shared the same birthday, Rachel always got the bigger slice of cake, the prettier presents, and more people wishing her well. I remember quietly counting. 11 people hugged her, 3 hugged me, and 2 of those were housekeepers. It was the same with toys. Rachel had an entire shelf of limited edition Barbies, while I played with soft plastic dolls with thinning hair, probably from a clearance bin. Even our mini strollers were different. Hers was pink and played music. Mine was dull grey with squeaky, stuck wheels. I used to convince myself I was just imagining things, that maybe I was too sensitive. But when we started preschool, the favouritism was no longer subtle. It was impossible to deny. On the first day of class, Mum dressed us in identical uniforms, red plaid skirts, white blouses, and knee-high socks. I remember feeling excited that finally we looked the same in adults' eyes. But when Mom stood on the steps holding up her phone, I heard her voice ring out clearly. "Rachel, sweetheart, lift your chin, tilt your head just a little. Perfect." And me? I was just a blurry shadow next to her, my eyes peeking out from behind Rachel's shoulder. After that day, everything followed a set pattern. Every afternoon, Mum would park at the school gate, open the car door, and say the familiar line, "Jennifer, go home and do your homework. I'm taking Rachel to art class." Monday was art, Tuesday piano, Wednesday dance, Thursday acting, and Friday, sometimes just ice cream to relax after a long week. I'd walk into an empty house, drop my backpack on the chair, and cook. Instant noodles. The only sound was the ticking clock, occasionally interrupted by the washing machine spinning loudly. When I asked why I couldn't take art classes like Rachel, Mum just sighed. "Not everyone is cut out for the arts. You should focus on doing well in school. That would be better." So I did. I studied hard. But my good grades never once made my parents pause their dinner to applaud me the way they did when Rachel drew a cat that looked like a smudged ink blot. I started to realise something. No matter how hard I tried, I only became more invisible. In my own home. Rachel was always the centre, and I was just the background, a forgettable detail people looked right past. When we turned 10, Mum started talking about investing in the future. I didn't fully understand what she meant, but I listened carefully. Eventually, I realised that investment only applied to Rachel. New extracurriculars every month, violin lessons downtown, Wednesday night coding classes, weekend debate, clubs. And me? I once asked if I could join a creative writing group at the local library. Without even looking up from her phone, Mum replied coldly, "Not this month. Money's tight." A few days later, I saw her swipe her credit card to buy Rachel a new performance dress at a boutique downtown. I said nothing. I had learned that speaking up only earned me cold stares or carefully crafted excuses. "You don't understand. Rachel has talent. You just need to focus on your studies." So I did. I buried myself in books, The only way to prove I deserved to be seen. Math quizzes. I always got perfect scores. Essays. My teacher often used mine as the class example. I was even chosen to represent our class in the district debate, even though I had never joined a club before. But that night at dinner, when I proudly told everyone I'd be representing the school, Mum barely nodded before turning to Rachel. "Sweetheart, how was art class today?" I remember going silent, my hand gripping the fork, lips pressed together, so I wouldn't say something I'd regret. I started writing everything down in a journal hidden under my pillow. Every comment that hurt, every moment I was ignored, every time I wondered if I didn't exist, would anything be different? The answer came on a cloudy night when I crept downstairs for a glass of water after studying late. The house was strangely quiet. Light spilled from the living room, and I slowed my steps. I heard my father's voice, low and tired, as if shedding a mask. "Do you think we really need to try with both girls?" he asked. Mum sighed. "Jennifer's fine. She can handle herself. See, she runs without being pushed. But Rachel's different. She needs us to push, to guide. She has potential. Marcus, she was born to shine. What about Jennifer?" My father's voice lowered. "Have you ever thought that if we only had Rachel, life would have been less stressful?" I stood frozen in the hallway, my chest tight, like my heart had been squeezed. I bit my lip to stop myself from crying out loud. "She's a good kid," my mother said, her voice softer. "But sometimes I feel like having just one would have been enough." I turned around and ran to my room. The notebook under my pillow was no longer a place for memories. That night, I tore out each page and threw them slowly into the trash. With every sheet I dropped, it felt like I was letting go of the last pieces of faith I had left. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling where those glow-in-the-dark stars we'd once stuck up as kids still hung. I counted them. Rachel had 27 stars. I had only 13. Even the sky above my bed was divided unfairly, but I swore to myself, if they couldn't see me while I was right in front of them, then someday they'd have no choice but to look up, when I was standing tall where no one could. Ignore me. After that night, I felt reborn. I no longer longed for Mum to pat my head when I got a good grade, or for Dad to ask how school was going. I stopped trying to be seen. Instead, I started studying for myself. I spent most of my time in the school library, arriving earlier than anyone and staying later than everyone. I read more than the textbooks required, took neat notes, and practiced sample tests that others never bothered to look at. The teachers noticed. Mr. Brandt, our history teacher, called on me for the first time in class. "Jennifer, what's your opinion on Roosevelt's New Deal policy?" I looked up, a bit surprised. Then I started answering point by point, with examples I had prepared the night before. When I finished, the class was silent for a few seconds before he nodded slowly. "Very good. Precise, insightful, and articulate." I caught Rachel glancing at me, her eyes filled with disbelief, as if she had just witnessed something unnatural. That surprise quickly turned into irritation. When my English essay was posted on the board as a model, Rachel mumbled to her friend next to her. "The teachers are clearly biased. They probably feel sorry for her. That's why they're praising her." More and more teachers began to trust me. Ms. Lane asked me to lead our end-of-term discussion group. Mr. Reynolds nominated me for the state academic competition team. Rachel reacted more strongly each time. She tapped her pen angrily on her desk whenever I was praised, or deliberately voiced opposing opinions during debates, even if they barely made sense. One day, I walked into class and noticed Rachel wasn't at her seat. The room felt different. Students were whispering. The principal had just left. Ms. Lane waved me into the hallway. "Jennifer, there's something you should know," she said gently, still composed. "Your mother came to the school. She's in the principal's office. Rachel told her that teachers were intentionally favouring you to make her feel small." I stood still. I wasn't surprised Rachel said that, but I hadn't expected Mum to actually show up at school. I walked quietly past the office and peeked through the glass. There was Catherine Harper, in a plum-coloured business dress, arms crossed, pointing at some documents. The principal was trying to explain, Rachel is an outstanding student, but Jennifer, all she does is bury herself in books. She's not a leader. She's not creative. Pushing her like this is only hurting my daughter. The principal stayed calm. Mrs. Harper, we have clear academic records. Jennifer ranks highest in 4 core subjects. All her teachers unanimously agree. I heard my mother say, grades aren't everything. Your teachers are clearly biased. A few minutes later, she left the office. I ducked into the side hallway before she could see me, but inside, something had gone cold. That night, I heard her footsteps as she returned home. Rachel's door opened, then closed again. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I heard their soft laughter, the kind I'd never once heard directed at me. The next morning, when I arrived at school, a small envelope was on the teacher's desk. I didn't need to open it to know what it said, but Mr. Brandt spoke before I could react. Jennifer, don't let outside noise get to you. You deserve every bit of recognition you're receiving. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. I know. And I won't stop. I returned to my desk and opened my notebook. On the first page I had written a line I reminded myself of every day. They may not choose me, but I will choose myself. From that moment on, I didn't just study to escape the darkness. I studied to become the light. When I turned 16, I decided to get a part-time job at a bakery 3 blocks from home. It was a small shop called Sugar Bloom, with cream-coloured walls and the scent of butter cookies always hanging in the air. The owner, Martha, was in her 40s, usually tied her hair with a silk scarf, and always wore a warm smile. I didn't tell Mom. I knew she wouldn't approve. To her, getting a job at this age meant you have no direction. But to me, it meant a little bit of freedom in a world where I was rarely allowed to choose. That evening, wearing my pale pink apron and hair tied up neatly, I walked out the door. Rachel glanced up from her phone and smirked. Going to be a waitress? Cool, just try not to drop cake on someone's dress. I didn't answer, but inside I knew I had just taken my first step out of the shadow they kept forcing me into. After a few weeks, I managed to save my first small paycheck. It wasn't much, but enough for me to buy the books I loved without second thoughts. One evening, while looking for modern social change in America in Mom's office bookshelf, I accidentally knocked over a stack of old folders. While cleaning, I found a worn light brown notebook. The first page had a handwritten note, emergency contacts, do not use. I flipped through a few pages and stopped at an entry labelled Clara and Henry Whitmore. No contact number, blocked. Below it was a handwritten address in the southern part of the city. I'd never heard of it before. Clara Whitmore. I whispered the name to myself all night. The surname matched Mum's maiden name. Henry, maybe my grandfather. But why had I never heard of them? The next day, while Mom and Rachel were off at their weekend spa appointment, I took bus number 14 to the address in the notebook. It led me to a small, sky-blue wooden house with a short white fence and a front yard full of blooming yellow daisies. The house was modest, simple, but full of life. I hesitated a few seconds before knocking. A petite woman with silver hair opened the door. She stared at me, her expression shifting from surprise to confusion. "Who are you?" she asked softly. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. "I'm Jennifer Harper. I think you might be my grandmother." She raised her hand to her mouth and stepped back slightly, as if she was seeing a ghost from her past. Behind her, a man with snow-white hair and thick glasses appeared, holding a cup of tea. When he saw me, he almost dropped it. "Clara, look closely. It's her. It's our granddaughter." None of us said a word for several minutes. Then Grandma. Clara pulled me into the house, wrapping me in a hug so tight it felt like she was afraid I might disappear. That little house was like a whole different world compared to the cold one I grew up in. The walls were covered with hand-drawn pictures and old photographs. The scent of apple pie lingered in the air. They invited me to sit at the dining table, poured me a cup of hot tea and began asking question after question. They knew who I was, but had never had the chance to meet me. After your mother got married, she said we were too old-fashioned, that we didn't fit. Her new lifestyle. Then she cut us off, Grandpa Henry said. We called, wrote letters, but never heard back. You're the first to come find us. Grandma Clara. I didn't say a word more. My throat was tight. I didn't have the heart to tell. Them I had only learned their names less than 24 hours ago. I stayed until evening, helped Grandma wash dishes, and listened to Grandpa tell stories from his youth. Before I left, he handed me a small envelope for bus fare. And if you'd like, next time stay for dinner. On the way home, I opened the envelope. Inside, along with a bit of cash, was a handwritten note. You are always welcome here. Always. I held on to that note all night. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Somewhere that didn't require conditions or achievements. Just me as I was. Graduation day came faster than I expected. The last months of senior. Year flew by in a blur of heavy schedules, final exams, and late nights studying at the library. Then that morning, I stood on the stage of West Haven High's auditorium in a navy blue gown, listening to the announcer call my name as the valedictorian of the class of 2024. Applause echoed through the room, but when I looked down at the row reserved for parents, I saw my mother looking at her phone and my father chatting with Rachel, who sighed loudly, like I had just stolen her spotlight. I walked up to the podium, accepted my diploma, and gave my short thank you speech, my voice steady, every word clear, but inside I felt strangely hollow. That evening, there was no celebration, no balloons, no cake, no congratulations Jennifer sign. Just an ordinary dinner of grilled fish and salad. My mum told Rachel to cut back on fried food to stay fit for the upcoming trip, and Dad talked about a difficult client at work. No one mentioned me, even though I had just graduated top of the class. After I finished washing the dishes and was heading upstairs, Mum suddenly called out, her voice unusually excited. Jennifer, sit. Down. I have some good news. I sat down slowly, tilting my head slightly, hoping for something unexpected. We're going to Hawaii, a 5-day vacation in Maui to celebrate Rachel's graduation, Mom announced, like she was revealing the winner of a game show. Rachel smiled, not forgetting to give me a smug little look. I froze. We means who? I asked slowly. Mom waved her hand like it was no big deal. Oh, your dad, me, and Rachel. I only booked 3 tickets. You know how expensive flights are this time of year. Plus, someone has to stay home and keep working at the bakery. I looked her straight in the eyes. So, you mean I'm staying? Behind? Alone? She placed a hand on my shoulder, her expression like she was comforting a child who just dropped their ice cream. You understand. You're strong, independent. We trust you. I didn't say another word. I stood up, nodded, like a machine, and quietly went upstairs. The next morning, when I heard the car door slam shut, I peeked out the window. They were loading suitcases into the trunk. Rachel wore a cream maxi dress, her hair softly curled, holding her plane ticket and favourite latte. Mum waved up at me. Rachel beamed. I'll tag you in my beach pics, okay? Don't be jealous. The car door closed, and their SUV slowly pulled out of the driveway. I turned away, picked up my phone, and for the first time in months, called the number saved under a simple name. Grandma and Grandpa. Grandma Clara's voice answered, warm and steady as always. I couldn't hold back the tears. They left, I choked. They just left me, like I'm nothing. Oh, sweetheart, don't cry. Come over right now, we're going to throw you. The graduation celebration you truly deserve. I arrived at their house by noon. That little home was decorated with white and blue ribbons, balloons hanging from the window. The table was covered with a white cloth, and on it sat a chocolate cake with frosting that read, Congratulations, Jennifer, our amazing valedictorian. But that wasn't all. After a lunch filled with all my favourite dishes, crispy baked lasagna, and fruit salad, Grandpa Henry placed a small black box on the table. You've done something very few people ever do. We're so proud of you. This is our gift to you. I opened the box. Inside was a brand new car key with a keychain engraved with the words, Always believe in your own path. My eyes widened. You're kidding, right? Grandpa smiled and pointed toward the window. In the front yard sat a milk-white Audi Q3, sparkling new. The license plate hadn't been installed yet, and the documents were still tucked in a plastic sleeve behind the seat. That car is yours. A graduation gift from us, Grandma Clara said, holding my hand. We've been planning this for a long time, just waiting for the right moment. I hugged them tightly, tears streaming down my face, but no longer from pain. For the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't have to bleed for recognition. 2 weeks passed after their trip to Hawaii, and I lived in days more peaceful and warm than any vacation I had ever imagined. In the mornings, I drove my new Audi to Sugar Bloom Bakery, bringing butter cookies for my grandparents. In the evenings, I helped Grandma Clara prepare dinner, while Grandpa Henry read the paper and told stories from his days as an engineer. For the first time, I felt at ease. No longer straining to earn affection. The Audi parked neatly in front of our house was a quiet symbol of something my parents had never given me: recognition, trust, and unconditional love. And then the day I had predicted, finally, came. It was a mild Friday afternoon in Nashville. I was reading on the porch with a cup of chamomile tea still warm in my hands when the familiar SUV slowly pulled into the driveway. The three of them stepped out. Mom in a purple silk maxi dress, Dad with his sunglasses on, and Rachel, of course, in a designer outfit, dragging her suitcase like she was arriving on a red carpet. Mum was the first to see the car. She froze mid-step, lips pressed tight, her eyes moving from the Audi logo to the temporary tag, then to the chrome side mirrors. Rachel squinted, shielding her eyes from the sun, then turned to me. "Whose car is that?" I stood up, smiling softly. My dad walked closer, his voice slower. "Jennifer, are you joking? That car cost over 40 grand. I nodded, pulled the key from my pocket and twirled it around my finger, just like Rachel used to do with her designer purse straps. A graduation gift from Grandma Clara and Grandpa Henry. Silence fell for a few seconds. My mother's face changed colour faster than when she saw the stock market drop. She immediately grabbed her phone, dialing so quickly her hands were almost shaking. Dad stood frozen, and Rachel let out a short laugh, half mocking, half unsure. The four, cool connected. "Clara, it's Catherine. I need an explanation. You bought Jennifer a car. Do you even realise what this implies?" I could hear Grandma Clara's voice clearly over speaker, warm, calm, unfazed. "Hello, dear. Did you enjoy your Hawaii vacation? That has nothing to do with this. How could you even afford that? All this time we've kept quiet because we don't need to show off. Catherine," she cut in gently but firmly, "after you cut us off, we invested in a few tech ventures. Now we live comfortably and have chosen to use the rest to support someone who truly values family." Mom gripped the phone tighter. "Jennifer is my granddaughter, but so is Rachel. If there's a gift, it should be fair. She needs a car too. She's getting ready for college." I almost laughed. She'd just gotten back from Hawaii, tan and covered in Instagram check-ins, and now she wanted fairness. Then Grandpa Henry's voice came through, deep and steady. "Catherine, fairness is a good thing, but you seem to have forgotten that fairness must come with love. Jennifer has never been treated like a daughter by you. Now we've chosen her as our heir. All our assets, savings and property will be in her name." Rachel's eyes widened, and my father murmured, "Catherine, you haven't spoken to them in years. How could you know they even had that kind of wealth?" Mum stood frozen, the phone still to her ear, but nothing more was said. The line had gone dead. Her eyes darkened and she turned to me. "Jennifer, you need to think carefully. You know Rachel needs the car for school. You're just working at a bakery. You don't need something this fancy." I stepped closer, popped open the trunk. The suitcases I had packed 2 days earlier sat neatly inside. I pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Inside was a copy of my acceptance letter from Columbia University. I received a full scholarship, tuition, housing, living expenses all covered. No, I won't be working at the bakery forever. but at least I'll never have to trade my dignity for affection. Rachel wasn't smiling anymore. Dad said nothing, just looked at me like he had lost something he never realised was important. I had just opened the car door when Mum stepped in front of it, arms crossed, eyes sharp like she was about to deliver a lecture. "Jennifer, you can't keep that car," she said coldly, her patience clearly gone. "Rachel is the one who needs it for school. She just got into State University, and aren't you just working at a bakery?" I looked up at her, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. "I don't work at the bakery anymore, and I'm not staying here." Dad finally spoke, his voice low and pressuring. "Jennifer, you need to be realistic. Rachel has a college plan, a social network, a future. She needs the car to build that, and what do you have?" I reached into my bag, pulled out a neatly clipped folder, and handed it to him. An acceptance letter from Columbia, with a full scholarship covering tuition, housing, and living expenses. They both stood speechless for a few seconds. Rachel stopped typing on her phone, turning to me as if she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. "Columbia?" my mum repeated, her voice suddenly quieter. "You mean New York?" I nodded. "Yes, I'll be studying law and social policy. Classes start in 3 weeks." "But why didn't you say anything?" Dad asked. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine confusion in his eyes. I shrugged. "Because I already knew what you'd say." "We can't afford it. It's not necessary. Save it for Rachel." I looked up, locking eyes with Mum. But my grandparents believed in me. They thought I was worth it. Rachel stepped forward, arms crossed, scoffing. "What about the car? You're seriously taking that to New York? Where are you going to park it, right outside your dorm? Trying to make a scene?" I turned back, opened the trunk, revealing 2 large suitcases, a tote bag, and a neatly wrapped laptop. I had been ready long before they returned. "Don't worry," I said, closing the trunk. "You won't have to see it because I won't be coming back." Mum stood speechless, then suddenly changed her tone. "Jennifer, listen to me. Don't overreact. I just want what's best for both of you. Every family plays favourites sometimes, but that doesn't mean we don't love you." I shook my head, lips pressed tightly. Love can't be one-sided. I can't keep living with a little bit anymore. My dad stepped forward, placing his hand on the car door. "If you drive that car away, you'll be on your own. No one here will help you anymore." I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I saw the conditions behind everything they'd ever called help, and I knew I was ready to let it go. I'll take responsibility for my own life, one step at a time. I closed the door and started the engine. Rachel stood with her hands on her hips, trying to smirk, but her eyes betrayed her. My mum turned away, staring at the concrete driveway like she was searching for a comeback she couldn't find. My dad still stood there, his hand now off the car but not stepping back. "Jennifer," he said, his voice for once without command. "If you ever feel overwhelmed, you can—" "I'll be okay." I cut him off with a small nod. "And this time, I don't need anyone to confirm that." I pressed the gas. The Audi rolled slowly away from the familiar driveway. In the rearview mirror I saw them, those 3 figures still standing there, growing smaller in the distance. The road ahead didn't promise to be easy, but it was mine. Not handed to me, not paved by anyone else. Each step forward was a step of true freedom. I left Nashville on a late summer morning, the sky unusually clear. The Audi glided along the interstate, and ahead of me opened a brand new chapter. New York City, Columbia University, youthful dreams, and a completely new life, waiting to unfold. My grandparents insisted on driving behind me in Grandpa Henry's old sedan. They didn't say much, but I knew every time I looked in the mirror they were still there, steady, silent, and full of faith. Before we parted ways, Grandma Clara hugged me tightly outside the dorm gates. "You've gone farther than anyone ever imagined," she said, her warm eyes glowing with pride. "And you never had to do it alone." I smiled, burying my face in her shoulder. I had never felt so protected, even though I was officially on my own now. College life swept me into a completely new rhythm. Classes at Columbia were challenging, with brilliant professors and classmates from all over the world. I worked part-time, at a small bookstore near Brooklyn, where the smell of old pages and the soft jingle of the front door brought me more peace than anything else. I began building a life where I didn't need to look over my shoulder for permission. No more judgmental stares, no more subtle comparisons masked in sweet words. Here, I was Jennifer, not Rachel's little sister, not the obedient one. Just me. A few weeks later, Grandma Clara called me with news that didn't surprise me. "They came by this morning," she said, her voice calm as if savouring each word, brought a fruit basket and plenty of apologies. I stayed silent for a moment. What did they say? They said they missed you, that the family should come together again, that Rachel is struggling with tuition and thought maybe we could help. I clenched the phone, but Grandma Clara's voice remained steady. We invited them in, made tea, but didn't say much. After they left, your grandpa and I agreed. Everything, the property, savings, bank accounts, it's all going to you. Sat still in my dorm room, the afternoon light streaming through the window onto my law textbooks. I didn't know what I felt, bitterness, vindication, or sadness. "Grandma," I whispered, "are you sure? I don't need—" "It's not because you need it," she interrupted, gentle but firm. "It's because you deserve it. You're the only one who never treated us like a burden." Tears welled up. In that moment, I knew true love never comes with conditions. I didn't respond to the message my mum sent 2 days later, her first text in over a month. She used that familiar tone. "I know you're upset, but we're still family, right?" I wasn't upset anymore. I didn't feel resentment. I simply no longer felt the need to hold on to something that was never really mine. I hit block. Contact without hesitation. Time flew in New York. I adjusted better than I expected. My new friends, Leah, an Egyptian-American journalism major, and Ethan, an economics student from Oregon, made me feel truly valued. We studied together at Butler Library, grabbed midnight pizza from the corner shop, and on some nights sat on the dorm balcony, watching the city lights sparkle and dreaming about the future like it was all within reach. One Sunday night, after May, closing the bookstore, I got a message from Ethan. "Coffee on the corner, 9 p.m. I've already got us a table." I looked at my phone and smiled. No more pressure to prove myself, no more comparisons, no more hunger for love that came only with pity. I had my life. A beginning that wasn't perfect, but an ending shaped by my own choice. I chose myself, chose peace, and chose to move forward without looking back. From my own story, I've realised that not every wound needs healing through forgiveness. Sometimes what we really need is to let go. I once tried so hard to be acknowledged, but I found my worth only when I stopped seeking validation from those who never truly valued me. Family isn't just where we come from, it's where we're loved without conditions, and true happiness begins the moment we find the courage to choose ourselves. What do you think of Jennifer's decision? Should she have forgiven her family? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and meaningful family stories.